Hello, this is Mr. Dufresne, and welcome to our texture unit. This will be the first assignment. We'll first go over the major points that we will cover in this unit before going into the first assignment itself and our use of BandLab. So the definition of texture: music has thick and thin layers. There are three types of texture: monophonic, which has one layer or melody; polyphonic, which has more than one layer or more than one melody; homophonic, where we have chords or chunks of sound. You may need to refer back to this list at times throughout the unit, and I will be adding to this study guide. So kind of a brief overview of texture. If you're listening to music and we have, for example, a solo instrument such as the flute or the clarinet or the saxophone playing by itself, these are instruments that play one note at a time, versus we might have a rock band that's playing, which has uh, electric guitar, electric bass, drum set, and vocals. So that's four different instruments that can have a variety of layers playing at a time. So that would be a thicker texture than our solo instrument. You might have a piano playing by itself. The piano could play 10 notes at a time. The pianist may be playing chords. He or she is playing more than one note at a time, while maybe playing a bass line, or two melodies or more melodies playing at the same time, or an instrument such as the marimba or the vibraphone, where percussionists often use more than two mallets, which allows for different thickness and thinness of the layers and provides different textures. Or an orchestra is another example. You have a lot of different instruments happening at the same time. That allows for different types of textures, or maybe a symphonic band, all kinds of musical groups that lead to different possibilities as far as the thickness and the thinness of layers, and which creates different textures. So we are going to go into BandLab now and talk about our first assignment in texture. So you will, at this point, you will already have your username and your password. The first step is to go up here to this red rectangle that says create with a plus and click on that. And then you see the screen with different options here, and we are going to be using the MIDI instruments here on the far left. So we click on that. Now the first thing we're going to set is the metronome. So we go up to the metronome here, and I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to make that, instead of 120, I'm going to slow the tempo down to 60. And as you get in this and you start to compose, and if the 60 is too fast, you can slow that down to 50, or if you feel like you want to move the tempo up just a little bit, maybe up to 70, that's fine. You can kind of adjust that as you want. Then we're going to go into settings, and we're looking for the metronome settings here. And here's another way that you can speed up or slow down the tempo, although it takes much longer, by using the plus or the minus. We have control over the sound of the metronome. So if you want to change that to one of these, that's fine. I'm just going to go with the default setting. And down here, when you open this up at first, your count in duration is probably going to be off. We're always going to set that to 2 bars. Click out of that. And then we're going to go back to settings, and we're going to enable the metronome. And you can see that turns green over here. So if you don't know what a metronome is, you've been in my general music classes over the years, we always have been using the app, the Drum Genius, and I have that playing in the room through a loudspeaker, and we have different kind of grooves, but basically the purpose of that is so that we're all playing to the same steady beat, and we're learning to play in time. The metronome is the same kind of function. but all you're going to get is a click. Musicians often refer to this also as a click track. So when I was in the metronome settings, I clicked on that count in bars. So what that means is we're going to get 2 bars or 2 measures. We are in 4/4 time, which means we have 4 beats per measure. So we will get, when we click on the record button, we will get 8 beats. Now we count that like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to start playing. Now, when we count measures, we count them in this way. There's 4 beats in a measure, but if we want to keep track of a large amount of measures, if we're just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, it doesn't take long before you get lost. So we change the first number to keep track of how many measures we are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, etc. That would be 4 measures or 16 beats, which is what we're going to compose with today. We're going to compose 4 measures, a 4-measure phrase. Now we're going to go down here to instrument, and we're going to start off with the bass today. And we go up to the top, and here's the bass. All right, and we're going to go down here now below bass, and we're going to choose what kind of bass we want. So there's a lot of options here, and if you want to hear what the different basses sound like, we just click on the arrow. It's more of kind of a jazz bass, and even a shorter bass sound. Let's go down to one of these. How about the funk slap? Punchy jazz bass. Electric bass legato. A little more connected sound. The staccato, which is going to give us more of a separated. But I think I'm going to go with the funky bass sound today, and so I'm going to double click on that. And now we have, we see that it's changed to funky slap and funky slap over here. Now, if we're only going to use 1 or 2 of these, we can use the keys on the keyboard. So like perhaps V and Z. Let's see, so if I'm going to use the keys, I could try it's one way of doing it, or you can use the touchpad. All right, so depending on how fast you're going, you can see that's a little challenging to switch between. So you might try these sounds out with the keypad and decide to use a couple of these. So B, X, C. So you can try that out, find some patterns. Don't use too many notes, 2, 3 at the most at this point. I think I'm going to stick with that and use that as my rhythm. So then I'm going to go up here to the start the recording, and I will get 8 beats. I will count off as I play, and then I will play I'm going to play my bass pattern, and I'm going to just take that little pattern and I'm going to play it 4 times. Try to put that into 4 measures. 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and I can pause that. And you see it went back here. Now I have a kind of a visual representation of what I just played, so I can play it back and listen to it. And press pause. Now you can see it's stopped here. And if I want to set that back again, I can press this here. And I've got 4 measures, and you can see here, here's my little pattern 4 times. And that was pretty in time. I'm pretty happy with that. I noticed that the second note that I played was a little fainter, a little softer, and that didn't seem to change. I was trying to hit the keyboard a little harder there, and it still kind of came out a little soft. So that's okay. I'm just going to stick with that. So right there, we've got one layer happening, and that would be considered a thin texture. So that we're going to call that quits for today. And that we've created one layer, and we're going to go over here and press save. Then we're going to go over here to exit. And down here where it says new project, that's what I just created. We want to rename that. So I go down, and we're going to call this texture 1. I'm not going to get into the necessarily get into the monophonic, polyphonic, homophonic at this point. That was monophonic for the record, but we're going to kind of get into that over time, getting more specific with the language that's a little more complicated. So we're just going to call this texture 1, and then we put in our last name, first initial, then our grade level, 5, and we're going to put in your homeroom teacher's last name. So let's say that I'm in Ms. Kolinsky's class. So I put in Kolinsky. All right, and then I would press confirm. Now I'm going to change this just for my own purposes to 5 test for myself. So I can go back and refer to this. I'm going to press confirm. And it's processing. Sometimes it takes longer than others. And then the last step we're going to do, I'm going to click on these 3 dots over here again. We're going to go down to invite collaborators. And here you're going to put in my email address, dufresnem@hollyacademy.org. So that gets me, I'll be able to get in there and listen to what you're doing. At some point we can collaborate. I can get in there and add something, or we can we can have little bands, and you can have your friends and you guys can collaborate on projects. But for now, that will be it. And then I would just press send invite. All right, so you send invite, and then we're all done. All right, so that's processing. I'm going to just leave that alone and go back to our texture unit page here. So our goal here today was to get into the texture unit, go over some of the major points. We had texture has music, thick and thin layers, which is our definition. Monophonic, where we have one layer or one melody, which is what we composed today. We could have more than one layer and melody, or homophonic groups, chords, or chunks of sound. So hopefully our goal today was to start to familiarize ourselves with BandLab. Hopefully that makes sense to you. We can get back in here, and if we wanted, I could go back into the project that we just did, and we can get in there and we can add layers just within that piece that we just started, or we could start a new piece. So we'll do this both ways. Over the course of the first marking period, we will create lots of different pieces, and we'll get in and use the drum kit setting and create different layers within a drum set that allows for multiple layers, and that will be fun. So I hope you enjoyed our first lesson here in our texture unit. And that is all for today. Thank you.